PMO, and I'm not talking about pineapples, mangoes, and oranges. I'm talking about and I've had my "this is the last time" moment over 100 times trying to quit. I started doing it extremely young, and from then on, I was hooked, and I did it throughout the rest of my childhood and every single one of my teenage years. It's 2021, and I just watched a 3-hour-long podcast on dopamine, and my self-awareness has drastically increased. I'm now aware of so many of my addictions and bad habits are because of this neurotransmitter. And it's like, great, now that I understand this, I can stop doing these bad things. It's just a transmitter releasing in my brain. I just gotta stop it for a while and my motivation and focus will increase. I continued watching porn. I continued relapsing. I remember looking myself so many times in the mirror, telling myself after a session, I'm done for real this time. In order to achieve what I want to achieve, I must become a higher version of myself, and this is required. I do hate this. I believe it's destructive. And yet the cycle repeats. And each time you relapse, it's like you're watching this internal dialogue, this argument take place within your brain. One side is like, no, you told yourself you were gonna stop. This is destructive. This is bad. You should feel shame. Just stop now before it's too late. Stop now before it's too late. Stop now before it's too late. And the other side saying, no, it's not that big a deal. This really is the last time. You're never gonna see this video or this picture again, and it's really special. You better use it. I was trying dopamine detoxes. I was trying to rely on discipline and willpower. I was trying to get my Nofap streaks up, averaging 3 days. I think my PR was like 8. And I was wondering, why am I lying to myself? Why does it feel like there is an intrinsic force inside me trying to push against any and everything I actually want out of this life? You see, the reason I was stuck in this cycle of self-sabotage was because porn had already completely hacked my subconscious. You see, your brain is compromised of parts that make up the conscious mind in the subconscious mind. I'm gonna keep this simple, but the conscious mind is you in that exact moment. You are the conscious, and the conscious is this space in which all of these experiences, these inputs appear. In this very moment, it is the sounds of this video or your air conditioning going into your head. It is your visual field coming in. It is any thoughts popping into the conscious mind. So if your mind was an iceberg, the consciousness would be what you see above the water. The subconscious is everything else underneath that above water from the naked eye you cannot see whatsoever. And this area is essentially where the brain stores everything, especially emotions and memories, as well as all of your programming. If you were a computer, this is where all the lines of code that cause you to do actions or thoughts happens. And trust me, it is always programming. The subconscious processes over 20 million bits of information per second compared to the conscious, which processes 40 bits. And this is where it gets a little scary. You see, through modern psychology and science, we've come to learn that the conscious mind only makes up for 5% of the brain's activity. The other 95% is subconscious. And this means that roughly 95% of our thoughts and actions are due to the subconscious. And our life is really just a product of our thoughts and actions, meaning 95% of our life is due to the subconscious. And trust me, understanding that is going to matter later when I explain how it creates these cycles. But first, we need to understand, how did we get here? Well, for me personally, it didn't help that I started at an extremely young age, because the younger we are, the more susceptible our mind and our subconscious is to programming. From 0 to 7, it's essentially wide open with no filtering. Everything gets put through. That's why a lot of people's problems tend to stem from parenting or trauma when they were a child. But regardless if you got exposed to it young or old, because most of us consciously aren't very good at filtering things through, it was still writing plenty of code down there. And one of the first that tends to get people sent down the rabbit hole is society's lies. Society has been bombarding us with subconscious programming since childhood. Lots of things that we don't register consciously whatsoever gets completely digested by the subconscious. Remember, 40 bits versus 20 mil. And let's just get the most obvious out of the way. The direct lies that we hear, such as everyone does it, it's good for you, it relieves stress, it helps you sleep, it prepares you for the real deal, and any other lies you've heard from the internet, media, TV shows, parents, friends, getting you to take that first step on the slip and slide of addiction. Think about all the music videos you've seen. How do the women in it dance? What is the song really about? What about tons of advertisements you see every day? What about your favorite social media influencers? Think about the premise of seemingly most TV shows and movies. The majority of these things contain subconscious programming that tells your brain that your priority should be climaxing. And even though now most of us know, oh no, it is actually bad, that's not true, that's degeneracy, yada yada yada. The subconscious just took it in. The programming is already written, and the reason why all this programming is especially compelling to us is that it plays on our brain's limbic system. This is what people tend to call the lizard brain, the monkey brain, the caveman brain that's just like, yes, spread seed, which is exactly why we see it in the videos, in the movies, in the advertisements, because the people creating it know that. They're trying to exploit it. So, you, me, the imaginary character in the story, hears all these lies, hears all this programming, and decides to try it. So they open a browser, they go to a site, and instantly their brain experiences the biggest dopamine release in their entire lives, unless they've done cocaine or something. And these extraordinary dopamine releases are extended due to something called the Coolidge effect. Scientists did a study where they took a male and female mouse and put them in a box, and lo and behold, they started having intercourse. But after a little while of clapping mouse cheeks, the male mouse grew tired or bored and stopped. But then scientists took out girl mouse 1 and put in girl mouse 2, and the male mouse started clapping again. And the cycle continued of new female mouse, male mouse starts clapping, male mouse grows tired, new female mouse. And they found that as long as they kept rotating these mouse baddies, Lil Bro would keep doing it until almost dying from exhaustion. He kept going because when each new female mouse was introduced, his little mouse brain released more dopamine. And just like mice, humans have genetic wiring to want to have more and varied offspring. It's kind of like how everyone seems to have a second stomach for dessert, even though you could be completely full off your entree, because the dessert offers novelty and more dopamine. The infinite assortment of stars or girls on these websites tricks your brain into thinking that it has access to infinite partners. And this is how it plays a role in our program. You see, a lot of things that come into our minds, such as certain opinions, thoughts, life events, can be altered or filtered through certain mindsets. For example, if you're a pretty stoic guy, a minor inconvenience won't go through as this terrible negative catastrophe compared to someone who's super depressed or anxious. That could seem like the end of the world, and the subconscious will believe that it is the end of the world. But dopamine is stronger than any conscious yes or no or mental filtering or attitude you put around something, because the brain sees extreme pain and extreme pleasure for exactly what it is. Therefore, that dopamine is causing the subconscious to see porn as a big ol' yes. Plus, it is further reinforced after you finish, because once you climax and finish, your brain releases a bunch of opiates, which is usually the feel-good chemicals. So not only are you getting the chemical of do it, you're getting the chemical of that was good. So now your subconscious is fully aware of this insane pleasure button that can be pressed. So it's gonna start feeding you and generating thoughts and perspectives to get you to press the button. Porn is better because it won't reject you like women will. We deserve the best sexual experience. More stimulus equals better. Just one more time, bro. Come on, just one more time. Just do it real quick. One more time. Just this picture, just this video. Come on. So, because pretty much no one does it once and never again, we end up doing it again. Because the brain gave us some sort of reasoning, or we had some sort of cue, trigger that got us to do it, and the reinforcement loop has begun. So we understand it programs the subconscious, the feedback loop, the dopamine. But why is it so hard to quit? Why are we stuck in the cycle? If we're aware of it all, why can't we just stop? Well, this is because the subconscious mind doesn't listen to the conscious mind. You can have all these thoughts about how bad it is, how you want to quit, but the programming of the subconscious is already there. You can say, we need to stop, and the subconscious says, what the fuck are you talking about, bro? But don't get me wrong, our conscious mind does have power, especially willpower. But the thing about willpower, and the reason why you may get a couple days going and then fail, is that willpower is a limited resource. So imagine that you're in a paddle boat on a river. The river is your subconscious, and the flow, the direction of the river, is the programming. And you're in your boat and you realize this river's going in a direction I don't want to go. There's a waterfall, there's a bear, something. So you start paddling in the opposite direction, and maybe you stop the flow, or maybe you even start making gains in the opposite direction, but eventually you are going to tire out. You are going to run out of energy. And when that happens, the river's just going to flow you right back down where it wants you to go. And this is why this cycle repeats over and over. I know for a lot of us, it's usually like a 3-day cycle. We're fired up, we're going to quit. And then by day 3, just a peek, just one more time. Oh geez, Rick, they got it with Fortnite characters now. And the worst part about that is when you're arguing to yourself over and over and over, and eventually losing and relapsing, you are further cementing that subconscious programming that this is good, this is what we do. Or once you start having the self-doubts of, I can't stop, I'm an addict, it's always gonna be this way no matter what, your subconscious is like, bet brother. And one thing I see that I think is super problematic in the Nofap community, especially with a lot of creators that try to give Nofap advice, is this idea of, oh, just wean off, like take a porn diet, cut back every 3 days, every 5 days, every 10 days. But this actually does the opposite of what they're hoping, because the longer you take in between sessions, the more relief the brain feels when you do it again. Cutting down literally amplifies the intensity of each session, further reinforcing the brain that this is pleasurable, this is good, this is what we do. It's kind of like if you put sand in your socks and you had to walk around for a few days with sand in your socks, and then you finally took it off, and your brain was like, oh, this pleasure, this relief is so good. Put the sand back in, let's do it again. Because when you're trying to quit for good, and when I say for good, I mean yes, forever, cold turkey, you have to slay 2 beasts. One beast is smaller, this is the dopamine beast, and the best way to kill it, honestly, is to just starve it to death. And this can only be done through a process of a couple days to a couple weeks, not watching, not touching it, not looking at provocative stuff, and for some people, not having actual intercourse, which isn't actually that bad. You don't get these crazy withdrawals like you're trying to quit alcoholism or a pill addiction. The problem comes when that beast is starving to death and it calls upon its big brother, the subconscious beast. And this beast actually does take deliberate attacks in order to slay it. And the first step is you have to realize and truly believe that when you stop, you are not sacrificing anything. Saying that you're giving up something means that you're sacrificing something good, which we know is not the case. And that tells your subconscious that there's inherent value in it, somehow. Any of the little lies of, it relieves my stress, it helps me sleep, it's relaxing, it helps me focus. Every single possible lie that you have heard, that you have said to yourself, that your subconscious could possibly have written in that code, you have to debunk it. You have to prove it wrong. So please leave a comment sharing your thoughts, your story, encouraging others. And if you'd like to know my exact protocol, not only to completely reprogram your subconscious to quit bad habits, but to unlock elite levels of focus, authentic confidence, stoicism, and become the outlier you're meant to be, you can consider checking out Mental Mastery, my flagship self-development masterclass, in the description. I hope this video opened your eyes. I hope it gave you a direction to head in. Perhaps I'll make a video breaking down all the lies in the future. Bye-bye. I like helping people just like me a few years ago, beating my